What is a sense of enclosure? This is like an urban planning principle which you can apply to your designs. Um, Basically, the trend now with public space design is public space is usually thought of as just the street, but in the very developed countries and the quote unquote beautiful cities around the world, the street is treated as a room. So the roadways and the sidewalks are your floors, and the walls are the building facades and the kanang street furniture, like street infrastructure. So street trees, lamps, benches, and of course your building. And then you can make your design more like what they call this holistic or contribute to the urban fabric by being aware of this sense of enclosure. So architecture should fill in the gaps of streets to create a seamless plane or like aligned plane, enclosing the space and make it more aesthetically pleasing, as well as providing other functional requirements like shading, which we talked about. And just very quickly, so imagine if your building is here, you can, this is September, this is today. The sun will be more or less on the southern side of the site. This is Ayala FGU Center, this like yellow square over here. I think this is a bit more this way like that. Our site will be where this yellow square is, and that is terraces over there. And notice, let me zoom out a bit because it's causing me problems. Sun Sunrise starts at like 5:30 a.m. and then moves along this path over here to the southern side because that's the sun path diagram for September 2021. And by 12 o'clock, the sun is somewhere here, like southwest um, during noon, and then it continues until 5 p.m. So that's what it looks like. And then remember, I mentioned that northwest is the hottest part. That's because during May, which is June, May, our hottest months in the Philippines and in Cebu, let's say May, let's say middle of May, May 15. The sun path is now in the afternoon, like 12 onwards, is located or is situated northwestern of any site in Cebu City. So that's why I say that the hottest part of your site is northwest. So you can see 12, it's like northwestern all the way down to, all the way to 5 p.m. So um, that's why I say northwest is the hottest part. Now, how will that impact your sense of enclosure? So over here, we had a couple of samples. So let's say your building shape looks like this, your massing looks like this, where you have like a terrace set up facing the open park, and this is FGU Center here, and this is Ayala Mall here, the simple rectangle. So how is sense of enclosure achieved by this design? So if we go to street level, we're in Mindanao Avenue, standing on the eastern side, looking west, and you can see with this design, the sense of enclosure, I think, is successfully achieved. The most important part we noticed during our this morning's discussion is to have a tall mass, sort of mirror FGU Center on the eastern side or closer to FGU Center. You can have setbacks, or you can have your building setback on the eastern side. Doesn't really affect the sense of enclosure as much. And most importantly, ground level and second level should be more or less aligned with FGU Center as well. So this is for the terrace design. And then let's look at it from the east looking west. Still looking pretty good. And the reason why I'm not too much bothered with this gap here is really because there's already an open park here on the eastern side. It kind of continues. There's this sense of continuity if there's like no building mass on the eastern side. But on the western side, it's more important because you have FGU Center. Now let's look at the Ayala side. Oh, here. So looking at the Ayala side, again, because of the open park on the eastern portion of your site, the sense of enclosure is still very strong, as long as you maintain that alignment with FGU Center. So that's what it will look like. So going back over here on the western side looking east still looks pretty good. And that's this sort of massing doesn't have any setbacks on the FU side, but it does have setbacks on the open park side. So let's try another building shape. Let's try this one. So what if you just have a simple setback on the northern and eastern sides? How will that look like? So let's go to Mindanao Avenue. So this one, especially in this angle, has like a risk of like not filling in that gap, even with a very small 2 meter wide setback here. You see that from this point of view, the alignment is not maintained, making this very weak in the context of an enclosure. So let's look at it from another side. Yeah, it looks worse. So maybe a setback on the Mindanao Avenue isn't really recommended. So we'll be using so we'll be using like either you build all the way up here, or you could add roof eaves to like imply that massing. So let's say every 3 meters, let's say 4x, like that, and then we create roof eaves. Let's say the roof eaves about 0.2. Just multiply, copy paste that. Okay, copy pasting that, and then we'll push it out. We have roof eaves like that. And if we go back down to the street level, I think that helps a lot. So if you want to have like roof eaves are good actually for providing shading, especially on the northern side of your building, which is something that FGU Center lacks. I think this is a good way to provide shading and also maintain enclosure. So you can do this for your like if your building setup is similar to this. Okay, let's look at the Ayala side. So again, if you maintain that continuous plane, it looks very good. And let's see, let's add our shading here. I think in your Revit, the location of the map, the location of the site is already built in, but for SketchUp, you need to plug it in. So let's see, model info, geolocation, add location. Oh no, set manual location is a lot faster. Let's see, this is Philippines, Cebu City. And then to do this, if you're using SketchUp, I might as well show it. We just look at the coordinates for Cebu City. So that you just copy that, including the north. Okay, so how SketchUp formats it, if the first two numbers or the first degrees, the first few degrees, whether it be 10, it will be, whether it's like 2 or 3 decimal places, you just copy that exactly. You don't need to copy the degree sign. Actually, you can copy the degree sign, but yeah, you can even type it in without. So I'll just copy that very quickly. And notice like Google SketchUp remove the degree sign, just added a 0 there. So if I click OK, so it's already geolocated to the Philippines. That means the shadows and the sun diagram should be accurate to the Philippine location. So let me turn on shadows. This is for November. Let's go to September. Let's go to Mindanao Avenue. Let's see, this is, let's say noon. Where does the shade look like? Okay, let me update. So notice that because the 6-story building is aligned with FGU Center, this is the shade over here. If you can see where my mouse is, at 12 noon. So very much shaded. Even if you maybe set back a lot, the shade I think is enough. So there's like almost like 5 meters of shade during noontime on this side of the street. But what does it look like on the Bilaran Road? The Bilaran Road, because the sun is more on the southern side, it's really exposed to the sun. So you might want to add some roof eaves on this side as well. So in general, for tropical climates, roof eaves should be all around the building because Half the time the sun is on the southern side and half the time the sun is on the southern side. That's why we have our shadows on the northern side, and then the other half of the year it's on the opposite side. So let's see our summer months. Let's say May, June, so that's March, April, May. Notice the eaves are providing a lot of shading for the interiors, and then the street is a lot more exposed. So there's really not much you can do about that. But at least for the other 6 months of the year in Cebu City, it's shaded. So let's see, look at Ayala side over here. So again, because we maintain that sense of enclosure, there's that shading provided. So at least the part in front of your building, this is the existing setback from the FGU center. So if you look at Google Maps, the FGU center sets back over here. Can't think to 3D? There we go. So there's already an setback there. So it's because they set back. I don't know why they set back. There's like a gap in the shading, so that makes it less comfortable, at least during the summer months, if you have that gap there. So again, enclosure can provide not only aesthetic benefits but also functional benefits like shading and the cooling of the street. And then we have another more simpler design here, a simpler massing. So let me move it over here. So during the summer months, provides adequate shading. During the colder months, like the Burr months, so I'll move it to September, you still get that shading over here. But because you set back here, there's a gap of shade over here. So you might want to address that with, well, nothing really. There's nothing much you can do if your setback is here. You could provide some eaves here, but this is really the end of your property line, like the maximum. So that's as much as you can do. So really, if you want to have continuous shading across your building, all around your building for like all 12 months of the year, you really want to maintain that sense of enclosure. So if you reduce that setback there during the summer months, no, sorry, we're in the Burr months, you provide that shading there. So you're making the street more comfortable, you're making your building more comfortable, and yeah, something like that. So yeah, the architecture is working together with the urban infrastructure. So that is really what enclosure is all about: maintaining the visual quality of the street, maintaining the sense of alignment to like existing buildings, and that just makes you a better designer because you're aware of the buildings around you. You're not designing in a silo, and then you're like your building not only benefits its users but also the people outside your building. So I think that just makes for good design.